Imagine being imprisoned in a jail from which escape is almost impossible, and for thousands of kilometers in every direction there is nothing but ice and snow. The story begins in a cold and deserted prison in Siberia. Many German soldiers are standing in a line. In fact, after World War II ended, Russia captured many German soldiers and forced them to work in coal mines during the day. The surprising thing was that the security of this prison was not very strong. Even so, no prisoner ever tried to escape. The reason was the dangerous location of the place. As far as the eye could see around the prison, there was nothing but snow. The prison was about 14,000 kilometers away from any human settlement. Therefore, even if a prisoner managed to escape, surviving in the freezing cold of Siberia was almost impossible. No one dared to escape from this prison surrounded by thousands of kilometers of snow. But among those prisoners was one man whose mind was extremely sharp. He had only one dream: to somehow escape from this prison and return to his wife and daughter. That prisoner's name was Clemen. He had been sentenced to 25 years in this prison. But Clemen did not want to spend half of his life there. He had only one thought in his mind: to escape somehow. And one day, fate finally gave him an opportunity. Clemen quietly hid inside a coal transport train and managed to get far away from the prison. As soon as he got outside the prison walls and saw the stars shining in the open sky, he was overwhelmed with joy. But this freedom did not last long. A short distance later, the train was stopped. When Clemen peeked outside, he saw a Russian soldier standing in front of him with a gun pointed at him. Unfortunately, he was caught right there. For attempting to escape from prison, he was given a severe punishment. This time, he was locked inside an open-air cell. There was no roof, only the open sky above, and freezing cold all around. The cold inside the open-air cell was so intense that Clemen's condition became terrible. To make matters worse, rain during the night increased his suffering. He was not kept there for a few hours, but for 2 entire days. Between the freezing cold and the non-stop rain, Clemen somehow endured those 2 days. The next morning, after the 2 days were over, the prison warden came and took him out of the cell. Surprisingly, the warden did not torture him himself. He only said, "Your companions are eagerly waiting for you." Clemen did not understand what he meant. But as soon as he reached the other prisoners, he saw that they were all waiting for him with sticks and clubs in their hands. The other prisoners were furious, because they had also been punished for Clemen's escape attempt. For the past 2 days, all of them had been kept hungry. Now Clemen understood why the warden had said that his companions were waiting for him. As soon as Clemen arrived, the prisoners attacked him. They beat him mercilessly with sticks and clubs. During the beating, Clemen was badly injured. His condition became so serious that he had to be admitted to the prison hospital. The doctor of the prison was also a German prisoner. When Clemen regained consciousness, he told the doctor that he wanted to escape from prison once again and needed his help. The doctor was shocked to hear this. Even after suffering so much, Clemen was not ready to give up. The doctor explained that escaping alive from this prison was almost impossible. Even if he somehow got out, surviving the freezing Siberian cold would be extremely difficult. The doctor remained silent for a while. Then he said, "The truth is, even if you don't escape, your death is almost certain. The coal mines where you work contain a very high amount of carbon in the air. It slowly enters the body and causes dangerous diseases like cancer. Staying here is just as dangerous." Thinking about this, the doctor told Clemen, "You should definitely try to escape from this prison one last time." After that, the doctor opened his cupboard and gave Clemen all his warm clothes, shoes, and other necessary supplies. He wanted Clemen to be fully prepared this time. The doctor also shared an important piece of information. He told him that Russian soldiers often hid food near railway tracks, so they could easily access it when needed. This information would prove very useful during Clemen's journey. The doctor even gave Clemen a gun, so he could protect himself if necessary. In fact, the doctor had gathered all these supplies for himself, because he had once wanted to escape from the prison too. But a week earlier, he had learned that he had cancer, and probably had less than a month left to live. That was why he decided that Clemen should get the chance instead. The doctor also handed him a lunchbox and said, "If you survive, deliver this to my family and tell them that I am no longer alive." That same night, using the darkness as cover, Clemen escaped from prison once again. This time, he did not use a train. Instead, he decided to travel on foot. He walked continuously all night and did not stop even after morning arrived, because he was constantly afraid that Russian soldiers would capture him again. When the warden learned about the escape the next morning, he went straight to the doctor's room. He suspected that the doctor had helped him, but by the time he arrived, it was already too late. The doctor had taken his own life. He knew that as soon as the warden discovered Clemen's escape, he would subject him to terrible torture. Afterward, the warden sent many Russian soldiers to search for Clemen. He gave strict orders that Clemen must be captured alive and brought back. For many days, the soldiers searched the surrounding area, but they found no trace of him. In reality, luck was on Clemen's side. The continuous snowfall kept erasing his footprints. Because of this, finding him became more difficult with each passing day. After days of searching, most people began to believe that Clemen had frozen to death in the terrible cold. He knew very well that Clemen was a strong man who would not give up so easily. Therefore, he ordered the soldiers to continue searching. Meanwhile, Clemen was still alive. With great determination, he continued moving forward through the snowstorms. 9 days after escaping from prison, he suddenly heard dogs barking. He immediately turned around and saw a sled rapidly approaching him. Before he could understand what was happening, the sled passed right over him and continued forward. Suddenly, Clemen woke up and realized it had only been a dream. In reality, he had been walking continuously for 9 days, and all his food was gone. Hunger and exhaustion had made his body extremely weak. Every day it became harder for him to continue. Even so, he refused to give up and somehow kept moving forward. A few more days passed, and eventually his body gave out. Weakened by hunger, Clemen collapsed unconscious. Several hours later, when he regained consciousness, he heard a strange sound nearby. Looking carefully, he spotted a seal. The sight immediately filled him with hope. Clemen quickly took out his gun and tried with all his strength to take aim. But because of weakness and exhaustion, he missed the shot. The seal started to flee. After many days, Clemen had finally seen a small chance to survive. He did not want to lose it at any cost. He immediately ran after the seal. But while running, the ice suddenly broke, and Clemen fell into the freezing water. During the accident, he also injured his leg. Even so, ignoring the pain, he managed to climb out and continue chasing the seal. Clemen was about to take aim again when the seal disappeared behind a rock. He slowly moved forward and soon spotted it again. This time, it was about to jump into the water. At that exact moment, Clemen fired his last bullet. Fortunately, the bullet hit the seal. Seeing this, Clemen was overjoyed because now he no longer had to worry about food during the journey. For the first time in many days, he ate a full meal, rested for a while, and then resumed his long journey. Throughout this journey, he was completely alone. As far as he could see, there was nothing but white snow. Such an environment could easily affect a person's mental state. Therefore, Clemen kept talking to himself and constantly encouraged himself so that he would not lose hope and stop moving forward. He also frequently checked his compass to avoid getting lost in the snowy wilderness. The days continued to pass, and before he realized it, 2 full months had gone by. After walking continuously for 2 months, Clemen suddenly saw a small tree standing in the middle of the endless white landscape. The sight filled him with happiness. He ran toward the tree and hugged it. The tree was a sign that he had finally crossed the endless frozen plain and that a forest would soon begin ahead. After moving a little farther, exactly what he expected happened. The endless snowy region came to an end, and a dense forest appeared before him. After spending so long surrounded by snow, he was extremely happy. He gathered wood, lit a fire, and for the first time in many months, slept peacefully. But no one knew what the next day would bring. Meanwhile, the warden was still searching for Clemen. He ordered his search party to look for him everywhere within a 500-kilometer radius. At the same time, Clemen was moving through the forest when a terrible snowstorm suddenly struck. The wind was so strong that even large trees were uprooted. Clemen tried to move forward, but a massive tree broke and fell directly on top of him. Fortunately, two men happened to be passing through the area that evening. They were searching for gold and noticed Clemen. They helped him in time and saved his life. After that, the three of them continued traveling together. After many days of travel, they finally left the long frozen plain behind. Later they came across a river. To cross it, they built a small boat out of wood. While crossing the river, they started talking and sharing stories from their childhoods. Suddenly, the river current became stronger, and their boat slowly began to go out of control. As the current intensified, one of the men lost his balance and fell into the water. He did not know how to swim and quickly started drowning. Seeing this, Clemen jumped into the water without hesitation. Amid the freezing and fast-flowing water, he somehow managed to support the man and bring him safely to shore. He ultimately succeeded in saving his life. However, their third companion abandoned them and continued onward alone. He was a very greedy man. He believed that both of them would die, so he kept his companion's gold for himself. A little later, when Clemen and the man reached the tent, the rescued man became furious after learning what his friend had done. In anger, he picked up a gun and shot the greedy companion, killing him. After that, Clemen and the man gathered their belongings and resumed their journey. For many months, they continued traveling together. A human settlement somewhere. Time passed, and winter returned once again. The forests became covered in a thick blanket of snow. The man's supplies were very heavy, making it difficult for him to walk through the snow. Seeing this, Clemen offered to help. He said, "Give me your belongings for a while, so your burden becomes lighter." But the man suddenly became suspicious. He thought that Clemen wanted to steal his gold. Because of this suspicion, he attacked Clemen and shoved him hard. Clemen fell and lost consciousness. When he finally woke up, he saw a pack of wolves approaching him. To save himself, he quickly climbed a tree. But while climbing, one of the wolves grabbed his leg. At that same moment, the tree, which was already weak, broke in half, and Clemen fell to the ground. Now he thought his death was certain. Suddenly, the sound of gunfire echoed through the area. Clemen slowly opened his eyes and saw several wolves lying dead, while the others had fled. Some hunters from the area had arrived and saved his life. They took Clemen to their village, where the villagers treated his injuries. After years of hardship and struggle, Clemen had finally reached a human settlement. His happiness knew no bounds when he saw people again. He stayed in the village for many days, and the villagers took great care of him. One day, a letter arrived in the village. It was from the same prison warden. The letter stated that a German soldier had escaped from prison, and that anyone who gave him shelter would be considered a traitor. As soon as Clemen heard this, he realized that staying there could endanger the villagers. Therefore, he was forced to leave the village. If he remained, the warden might punish the villagers as well. Before he left, the villagers gave him food supplies and a hunting dog. Longer alone on his long journey, the dog became his companion. Because of that, he no longer felt the same loneliness. The two traveled together for many days. During their journey, they came across a lumber factory. The dog ran toward it in search of food. Seeing this, Clemen followed the dog into the factory. The workers inside recognized him and immediately took him to the owner. There, Clemen told them his entire story. After hearing about his condition and struggles, everyone felt sorry for him. They fed him and put him on a train heading toward Germany. Clemen was extremely happy because he felt he would finally reach home soon. However, he did not know that the factory owner had informed the warden about him. Meanwhile, the warden was waiting at the station with his soldiers. Before the train reached the station, Clemen spotted the Russian soldiers from a distance. As soon as he got the chance, he jumped from the moving train and ran. Unfortunately, the soldiers noticed him and began chasing him. Clemen raced across the railway tracks. Suddenly, the warden appeared directly in front of him. Seeing this, Clemen panicked because he thought all his years of effort were about to end. But at that moment, his dog leaped at the warden and bit him. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Clemen escaped once again. A gunshot rang out behind him. When Clemen turned around, he saw his dog lying dead on the ground. The sight broke his heart. But he did not stop. He continued moving forward with all his strength. Eventually, he climbed onto a bridge and jumped onto a train passing below it. Once again, he escaped from the warden. The days passed, and Clemen slowly continued his long journey. Before long, the year 1922 arrived. By then, 7 years had passed since his escape from. At that time, he was in Central Asia, wandering through a village fair. The fair was filled with different kinds of food. He wanted to eat something badly, but he did not have a single coin in his pocket, so he quietly moved on. Then he noticed 2 girls selling pancakes. Clemen kept looking at them, but because he had no money, he silently turned to leave. One of the girls felt sorry for him and broke off a piece of pancake and handed it to him. At first, Clemen felt a little awkward. Then he smiled, thanked them, and ate the pancake. A wealthy man at the fair witnessed everything. Later, Clemen went to a church, and the man followed him there. The man had once been a prisoner himself. Therefore, instead of turning Clemen over to the police, he decided to help him. He took Clemen to his home. There, after many years, Clemen shaved and regained his old appearance. Afterward, the man gave him a new passport so he could cross the Russian border and reach Germany. Clemen was extremely grateful for his kindness. After thanking him, he set out toward the border between Russia and Germany. A few weeks later, he finally arrived. He showed his passport to the Russian soldier stationed there. At that moment, Clemen was terrified that the soldier might recognize him or discover the truth about the passport. But luck favored him. Without any suspicion, a soldier allowed him to cross the border. Clemen's happiness knew no bounds, and he could not stop smiling. Finally, he reached the bridge that would lead him back to Germany. He slowly moved forward. But when he reached the middle of the bridge, a bright light suddenly flashed into his eyes. He opened them and saw the warden standing in front of him. Clemen nervously turned around and realized that he was still standing on Russian soil. That meant the warden could arrest him right then and there. The thought shattered him because he believed that all his years of struggle were about to end. But then something happened that even Clemen had never expected. The warden quietly stepped aside and allowed him to continue. At first, Clemen could hardly believe it. Even so, he slowly walked forward. The truth was that the warden had become deeply impressed by Clemen's determination to stay alive and by his courage. That was why he chose not to arrest him. As Clemen was leaving, the warden said, "This battle was only between 2 soldiers, you and me, and you won. Now, go and live your life." After that, Clemen crossed the border and finally reached his homeland, Germany. Sometime later, he arrived near his home. From a distance, he saw his wife and daughter. A little later, they left the house to go to church, and Clemen quietly followed them there. He still had not called out to his daughter, because she had always believed that one day her father would return. Then his daughter turned around and recognized him. She immediately ran to him and embraced him. After so many years, seeing her husband alive filled his wife with indescribable joy. Finally, all 3 of them embraced one another. After years of struggle, Clemen had finally returned to his family. And with that, this film based on a true story comes to an end.